Kansas, gateway to Oz. Under the rainbow, this is where it was. Hollyhocks and red ripe tomatoes, hand-churned homemade ice cream. Let me tell you, Kansas is more than tornadoes. It's the best part of Dorothy's dream.
Today on Around Kansas, join us for a continuation of the story about a man who moved to western Kansas from Honduras. Then join us for a story about sunflowers in the state. And next we'll have a story about the history of the Jansport backpack. And we'll end with a look at the recent reenactment event at Fort Wallace. Stay tuned. Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center. Your stem cells, your health, your life. Well, hello. Here at Ren Radio, I'm Frankie C., but here on Around Kansas, I'm Frank. And this is Around Kansas, the show that's about people, places, and things that make Kansas a great place to live, work, play, and come visit. I'm here in Topeka, and I point that way because it really is west where I'm pointing. Deb is out there, and she's got some great stories today. Well, here we are. We're way into September. Can you believe it's fall already? And, of course, there are a lot of festivals going on all around the state. We've talked about that. This state is full of great theater, always has been. A few years ago, I did some stories on the various opera houses all around the state and their restorations and all of that. And so look and see what's going on because they're outdoor venues and, of course, the indoor venues for some great entertainment here in the state of Kansas all through the fall. Of course, one of the premier places in the state of Kansas is right here in Topeka. It's the Jayhawk Theater. It's now officially the Jayhawk Theater of Kansas. Now, it opened back in 1926, and the theater itself was part of a complex built by the Crosby brothers at the time. They were way, way ahead of their time, because think of this. They had a hotel, and then they had the theater that seated like 1,600 people. And, of course, there were live shows in there in the beginning, and then, of course, it got changed over to a movie theater. But also, there was a walkway there where there were various shops that led into their big department store. In other words, it was a shopping mall way back in 1926. And not only that, but it was air conditioned. It was always 72 degrees. Now, years ago, the first mall that opened in Topeka was White Lakes, and we used to promote it. It's always 72 degrees. Well, think about this. The Crosby brothers were way, way ahead of their time because it was 72 degrees in the walkway, in the shops, in the store, and, of course, in the theater. So it is open for tours. So if you've never been there, go take a tour and attend one of the many events that are being held there now. There were a lot of very famous people that played on the stage at the Jayhawk Theater when they had live entertainment. And, of course, one of the most famous is Gypsy Rose Lee. If you've ever seen the Broadway show or the movie Gypsy, the Jayhawk Theater is where Rose Lee left the family and became Gypsy Rose Lee. So anyway, Deb has some stories today. She has one more story about the reunion at Fort Wallace, and then talking about sunflowers, because again, this time of the year, the sunflowers are in beautiful bloom here in the state of Kansas. And then another part of a story that she's doing about a soccer player from Honduras who came to Kansas. And anyway, it's an interesting story, and there'll be more on that. So anyway, we have a great show today. Hope you stay tuned, and you'll see her stories right after you see these. Ag AM in Kansas online at agaminkansas.com.
Hi, I'm Kim Mandarin with Hardy Insurance. I'm here to help you with all of your farm and ranch needs. When it comes to protecting your operation and your family, you need a name you can trust at a price you can afford. Call me today or visit hardyaviationins.com.
With nearly 100 years of broadcasting excellence, Ren Radio is now live on the internet playing hit songs of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Join Jack Diamond, Matt Collins, Les Glenn, Frankie C., Antonio Barber, Wings Callahan, and the real Don Steele for some of the best music ever recorded. Hear it at rendigitalmedia.com or get the Ren Oldies Radio app in Play Store or App Store. And tell Alexa, good times and great oldies on Ren Internet Radio.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center. Your stem cells, your health, your life.
Welcome to Kansas.
My name is Oscar Rivera. I'm originally from Honduras. Let me explain to you how I ended up living here in the Sunflower State. I also want to show you a little bit of what we are and what we have down there in my country, in Honduras. This is San Pedro Sula. I was born here in 1983. For me, this is the best city in the world. San Pedro Sula, the industrial city of Honduras, generates 65% of local productions and 70% of the nation exports. Not bad for a city that is internationally one of the most dangerous in the world today. In San Pedro Sula, there are many things that contrast with this fact. This is a city that has a nice combination between urbanization and nature. This city is surrounded by the Merendon mountain range. San Pedro Sula has many trees. It is a very green city. San Pedro Sula was founded on June 27, 1536. Since then, it was still a small village, until at the beginning of the 28th century, the banana plantation boom and the arrival of the transnational companies marked the economy and demographic growth of San Pedro Sula. From then on, the city became the most dynamic commercial center of Honduras. This attracted many people from the rest of the nation who arrived to San Pedro in search of a decent job that allowed them to give a good life to their families. They don't always achieve their goal. Currently, San Pedro Sula has the highest population growth rate in Honduras. In the city live more than 1 million people. Knowing how fast the city is growing, it is considered that in less than 10 years, San Pedro Sula will have over 2 million people. In Honduras, 70% of the population is poor, and 45% of them live in extreme poverty. This is a serious problem that I believe the reason might be not having an appropriate personal and collective education, because the problems that we are having now were generated 10, 15 or 20 years ago. Now it's in our hands to work to change that situation.
¿Dónde vos, Chale?
Yo ahí tengo libertad como allá, güey.
Yo vivo en Bermejo. ¿Y por qué andan en la calle, loco?
¿Ah?
No tenemos nadie que los ayude. Ah.
But I will tell you about it in the next episode.
Fort Wallace was the fightingest fort in the West. Fossils, Indians, soldiers, scouts, wagons, trails, pioneers, stories. Discover the story of Fort Wallace and the people who served here, the people who fought here, the people who settled here. Wallace County, where the past is present.
Summer is busy at Tirewater Farm and Home. We have just about everything you'll need for your summer projects, and we're consistently competitively priced. Tar waters can help make your grass and garden grow. And we have a huge variety of equipment to cut it. If you have a farm, Tar Waters has the products and equipment to keep it going strong. And our expanded parking lot will make it even more convenient to shop. So come see us at Tar Water Farm and Home in Topeka.
Hi, I'm Kim Mandring with Hardy Insurance. I'm here to help you with all of your farm and ranch needs. When it comes to protecting your operation and your family, you need a name you can trust at a price you can afford. Call me today or visit hardyaviationins.com.
This segment brought to you by the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center in Oakley.
Sunflowers line our roadsides and fields, dot the pastures, dress up the fence lines. The sunflower state is blooming. According to the Kansas State Historical Society, long before statehood, the sunflower began to develop a connection with Kansas. Traders on the Santa Fe Trail commented on the flower's presence. Stephen Long's expedition through Kansas in 1820 documented birds feeding on the flower's seeds. Early settlers burned the stalks for fuel and fed the seeds to their poultry. Soon after statehood, Kansans began to suggest the state officially adopt the flower. The Capitol Square is surrounded by a dense growth of rampant sunflowers, wrote Noble Prentice, editor of the Atchison Champion in 1880. They grow as big, rank, and yellow as if they were 40 miles from a house. The sunflower ought to be made the emblem of our state. Kansas delegates to the Grand Army of the Republic Convention in St. Louis in 1887 displayed the sunflower as their emblem. The Newton Daily Republican suggested in response to the favorable reception that Kansas should be called the Sunflower State. However, the sunflower was not highly regarded by all. An 1895 law called the sunflower a noxious weed that should be destroyed. Other Kansans appreciated the flower's hardiness and endurance. Kansans who attended rodeos in Colorado Springs in 1901 displayed the sunflower as a badge. It presented a pleasing scene, unique and attractive to every citizen of the Sunflower State. George P. Morehouse, state senator from Council Grove, recalled, "Our hearts swelled with pride, and our thoughts and words fondly dwelt upon the resources, traditions, and triumphs of the state we all love so much. That occasion suggested the sunflower as our state flower." Welcome to Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in Oakley, Kansas on I-70 at exit 76. I-70, after all, is America's Main Street, and we're right here on Main Street for you. Now that I'm an Oakley resident, I still come in almost every day, and I sit and listen to the conversations of the people around me. You know, the guys who are talking about the big elk they just bagged, or the folks who are taking their kid to college for the first time. People just traveling up and down the highway. Real people, just like you and me. And they find just what I find here, real people to serve them. There's history, there's scenery. We hope you'll stop and see us soon. Welcome to Oakley. Highways 40, 83, and I-70 come together right here in Oakley. Roads that lead to businesses, to magnificent rock formations, to scenic vistas, to places where legends were made. Roads that lead us home. Discover Oakley, the gateway to Western Kansas.
I had this horse. It was a good horse, except when the wind was blowing above 30 miles an hour. The wind was blowing about 35, 40, and I saddled him up, rode him out to the end of the lane, and I thought, well, he's doing pretty good. And about 6 jumps later, I was laying on the ground and thinking, boy, my shoulder sure hurt. I kept waiting, and it didn't get better, and so I went to orthopedic surgeon, and that showed that I had torn rotator cuff. And said, well, I have to do surgery. I thought, I farm and ranch by myself. This is not going to work out very well. I'd been sleeping in my recliner for about 2.5 years because it hurt too much to sleep in bed on my side. I'd heard about Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center on the radio. Gotten down there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 11:30 the procedure was all over. They just took some fat out of my side here and spun that down for about 45 minutes and then injected it in my shoulders, and I was on my way. It's something you don't hear about, but I thought it was worth a try, and I'm really pleased. It's really worked out well for me.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission. Progress powered by Kansas farmers. This is a Kansas profile by Ron Wilson, director of the Huck Boyd National Institute for Rural Development at Kansas State University. Have you ever had a mountaintop experience? Today, we'll meet a man from rural Kansas who has had many mountaintop experiences. In the process, he's taken a company to the summit of American business. Skip Yowell is co-founder of Jansport, one of the nation's leading outdoor equipment and apparel manufacturers. Skip grew up in Grainfield, population 321 people. While growing up, Skip spent several summers visiting his aunt, uncle, and cousin Murray in Seattle. Skip loved the outdoors and went hiking with Murray in the mountains. Back in Kansas, Skip attended Wichita State. One day, Skip got a call from Murray, who explained that one of his class projects at the University of Washington was to make something unique out of aluminum. Based on his hiking experience, Murray designed an adjustable aluminum frame for backpacking, one that was lightweight and strong and allowed for individual precision. The design won an award, and Murray decided to market it, but he needed some help. First, he told his girlfriend, who was very skilled in sewing, "Jan, if you marry me, I'll name the company after you." She agreed, and they were wed, and that was the beginning of the company known as Jansport. What about marketing the Jansport backpacks? Murray called upon his old friend and cousin back in Kansas, Skip Yowell. Skip relocated to Seattle to help his cousin. This is the 1960s, and the three self-described hippies went to work. They had no business plan or money, but they did have Murray's innovative design, Jan's sewing skills, and Skip's creative instincts and love of people. They started making packs in the upper floor of Uncle Norm's transmission shop. To save money, Skip slept there on a cot, and Aunt Mabel did the books. On the weekends, they'd go hiking in the mountains for fun and to test their equipment. They refined their products and started selling packs to retailers of outdoor products. One day, Skip got a call from the bookstore buyer for the University of Washington. This bookstore sold the usual campus-related items, but also had a line of outdoor products, including the Jansport backpacks. Since it rains a lot in Seattle, students were buying the backpacks to put their books in to keep their books dry. Plus, it made it easier to carry the books. Skip and Murray improved their design and sent them to the bookstore, and the new backpacks sold like hotcakes. During the 70s, the packs sold in college bookstores across the country. During the 80s, they caught on at high schools. And by the 1990s, backpacks were used at the grade school level. Today, virtually every kid goes back to school with a backpack. Today, Jansport is the world's largest backpack maker and a global leader in outdoor apparel and equipment. Skip wrote a book about the experience titled The Hippie Guide to Climbing the Corporate Ladder and Other Mountains. He retired in 2010. Skip and his wife Winnie bought a home back in Kansas in the unincorporated community of St. Peter with an estimated population of 8 people.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for the grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well on their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're We're big enough to take care of everything you need, but we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us on 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, we're glad to answer and work with you.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
The grand reunion of Forsyth Scouts assembled at Fort Wallace the weekend of September 8th, with hundreds gathering to watch the historic commemoration, all in the spirit of reconciliation and greater understanding. On Friday evening, there was a supper for the guardians of Fort Wallace, which featured the first screening of Thoth's Dragon, the documentary that tells the story of the post-scout and surgeon William Comstock and Theophilus Turner, and their 1867 discovery of a plesiosaur fossil. The cast and crew were together to see the documentary for the first time. Public screenings will begin later this fall, so contact me if you are interested in scheduling a screening in your town. The highlight of Saturday morning's events was the unveiling of the sculpture of Roman Nose by artist Melissa Rao, with clothing and accoutrements by Ken Widener. On hand for the dedication were members of the Roman Nose family, Quentin and Melvin Roman Nose. Melvin bore a striking resemblance to the sculpture. Thomas White of Cheyenne, Wyoming, portrayed the legendary Cheyenne leader for the weekend's events. Dennis Rogers, known as the Spirit Dancer, performed, dedicating his dance to Roman Nose. Historians Jerry Green, John Manette, and Dave Harrington offered presentations on the tumultuous history and events of the 1860s. The grand review of the Forsyth Scouts and the assembled representatives of the Plains tribes was breathtaking. Marla Matkin called the roll of Scouts and offered brief biographies of each one. A staggering number of volunteer hours have gone into these events, with some folks participating at each of the sites: Fort Harker, Fort Hays, Fort Wallace, and Beecher Island. Other Scouts have been portrayed by various reenactors, with overall participation of almost 100 men and women to achieve the grand reunion. Dave Zerfus performed his songs Roman Nose and Island of Refuge, both written in memory of the Battle of Beecher Island, as well as his dozens of other original songs about Kansas history. Sunday morning ceremonies at the Fort Wallace Cemetery took place under overcast skies, befitting the solemn occasion. 2 of the Forsyth Scouts are buried in the cemetery. Others, like Lieutenant Fred Beecher, have no grave. The men who fell in battle, including Roman Nose and his Cheyenne, Sioux, and Arapaho brothers, were honored. A special wreath designed by artist Tanya Lamb and presented by Michael Martin Murphy honored the horses and mules slain during the battle. All of the animals with the Scouts died. Murphy's foundation, the Murphy Western Institute, supported the Roman Nose sculpture, along with several individuals and the Order of the Indian Wars. The commemoration moved to Beecher Island Memorial Battlefield and the town of Ray, Colorado, the following weekend for the 150th anniversary of the battle. Dozens of Kansans went along to stage the commemoration. The collaboration itself has been historic, with sites that are city or county or privately run over hundreds of miles across 2 states. The sponsorship
of the Smoky Hill Trail Association around Kansas and the Kansas Department of Wildlife, Parks, and Tourism has been the foundation of support of dozens of individuals and other organizations like the Dane G. Hansen and the Wallace County Foundation. It takes a village, folks, sometimes a mighty big village.
I'm Frank, she's Deb, and we'll see you somewhere around Kansas.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.
Kansas is more than tornadoes. We're the best part of Dorothy Street.